We are bombarded by millions of international headlines every day. With so much competing information, it is nearly impossible to keep a clear mental map of exactly who is fighting who. To understand the reality of modern warfare, we have to strip away the political, rhetoric, and historical debates and look directly at the hard data of current conflicts. We will use this global conflict tracker. It isolates the exact geographic location, the opposing sides, the timeline, and a one-sentence explanation. The data reveals war is no longer a single concept, dividing cleanly into four distinct categories. Sorting the chaos into these four categories is the only accurate way to read today's geopolitical map. Category 1 is the most traditional format, the sovereign clash. This is where two recognized national governments fight over borders. Our tracker highlights Ukraine. The data logs inactive confrontation between Ukraine and Russia, which began in 2014 and saw a major escalation in 2022. This fighting centers entirely on the control of territory, national sovereignty, and regional security. While history textbooks focus almost exclusively on this type of border war, a formal state-on-state combat is now the exception in the modern era. Category 2 dominates the map. Factions versus factions. Here, internal military or political groups fight to control their own national government. In Africa, the tracker logs inactive conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces beginning in 2023. This is a direct clash between rival military factions, both fighting to seize control of the state apparatus. Moving to Myanmar, we track a similar internal struggle following a 2021 escalation. The established military government is actively fighting a nationwide network of internal resistance groups. In the Middle East, the Syrian government has been fighting multiple opposition groups in an ongoing conflict since 2011. Over a decade of prolonged civil war leaves vast stretches of the country's infrastructure in ruins. Nearby in Yemen, another ongoing conflict pits the Yemeni government against Houthi forces and various allied groups. These internal factional wars create massive power vacuums. They resist resolution because neighboring countries inevitably get drawn into the fighting to secure their own interests. Category 3 measures asymmetric warfare, state versus armed groups. This involves a formal military fighting, localized, non-state insurgents. The tracker plots an active conflict between Israel and Hamas and Gaza, driven by deep-rooted security and territorial disputes. This type of warfare relies heavily on dense urban environments, maximizing damage to local infrastructure. We track a similar operational structure in Somalia, where government forces are locked in an active security conflict against the Al-Shabaab insurgency, and in the Democratic Republic of Congo, state forces continuously engage with localized armed groups and militias. Insurgencies lack distinct front lines. The combat happens inside the communities themselves, placing civilian populations in immediate proximity to the fighting. The final category is institutional collapse, where the state fights against overwhelming criminal enterprise. In Haiti, the tracker registers a full crisis status. State authorities are battling deeply entrenched armed gangs. This differs heavily from civil war. It is a breakdown of civil security driven by armed criminal networks rather than uniformed military factions. In this category of state failure, survival, and raw territorial control replace political ideology as the primary drivers of violence. When we pull back and plot all of these data points simultaneously, the clear picture emerges. Traditional wars fought strictly between two sovereign nations are vastly outnumbered by alternative types of conflict. Global instability is currently driven by fractured internal states, insurgencies, and armed non-state factions. You can use this four-part framework as a mental filter to accurately categorize the violence you read about in tomorrow's headlines. Identifying exactly who is fighting who and the specific category of war they are waging provides the structural context for the modern global map.